Good evening and welcome to the Cottonwood Heights City Council business meeting. Today is July 5th, 2022, and my name is Mayor Mike Wickers. I have asked Councilmember Doug Peterson to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening. Thank you, Councilmember Peterson. Item 3.0 on our agenda is a citizen comment period. This is a time for citizens to address the council concerning whatever matters they desire. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to speak. Please review the public comment procedures on the last page of tonight's agenda. If you haven't already filled out a speaker comment card, please do so and hand it to a staff member who will get it to me. When making citizen comments, we request that you speak into the microphone so that your comments can be recorded, that you give your name, and that you avoid insulting language or comments. The audience should avoid expressions of support or disagreement, such as clapping or hissing, so that all speakers will feel like they can safely express their thoughts. The council is here to listen, but you shouldn't expect to engage in a back and forth dialogue. If you raise questions, staff will respond to you within a few business days to discuss your questions and provide responses. The first comment card I have here this evening is Randy Whitehead.
How about that? Technology. Just wanted to share with you the Citizens Committee is still very engaged, but the Citizens Committee would like to be able to provide some input in a more formal manner. Whatever it may be, they have some ideas of what could be developed perhaps down there on Hillside Plaza. So I'm really just asking, how can we become more involved in a formal way? So I would ask for staff to be able to get back with me at some point in time and let me know the preferred channel for that involvement. And I must say thank you to all of you for listening and allowing us to feel like you care. Thank you.
Mayor, may I make a comment?
Yes, thank you, Randy.
Appreciate Randy Whitehead coming to the microphone, and I would like to just remind everyone present or go on public record that please remember that there is a spot open on the Planning Commission. The only requirement to apply to serve on the Planning Commission is that you live in Cottonwood Heights, and in this case, as I understand it, it's District 1. So Randy, if any of your folks live in District 1, they would be eligible to make application on the website.
Thank you, Councilmember Burrell, and thank you, Randy. We appreciate your investment into this Hillside Plaza property and for what you've done with citizens. So thank you. We appreciate it. The next comment card I have is for Mary Ellen Johnson.
Hi, my name is Mary Ellen Johnson, 3489 East McIntosh Lane. I'm repeating myself. Thank you for listening again. It's about the property on 3526 Fort Union. We would again ask that you do not vote in favor of rezoning it. My angle is that I'm really concerned about the possibility of these turning into ski rentals. Cottonwood Heights is a mecca for ski rentals. We know a lot of people in our neighborhoods that are renting rooms on Airbnb, VRBO, even though they're not supposed to. So we're very concerned that these places will be turned into those sites. You know that 90 of us have signed a petition saying we are against this. We want a sense of community. We want to know our neighbors. We want a sense of relationships, whereas with these ski rentals, they're in and out. Let's be honest, they're not kept up like a home would be. So I please ask that you vote against it. Consider, would you want ski rentals in your neighborhood? Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes.
we will have a public comment on that topic separate from citizen comments, just a reminder for the residents.
Correct, correct. So if that is the subject that you would like to address, we'll put you off just for a second longer. So, but the next person that we have is Peggy Clark.
Hi, I'm Peggy Clark. My address is 3479 McIntosh Lane. And I also want to talk about the rezoning of 3526. So do you want me to wait to talk about that?
I will call you back up. How's
Okay.
that? Yeah, thanks. The next comment card is from Robbie McFarland. Also, okay. Runar Bowman.
Hello, Mayor and City Council. I'd like to talk about the community fiber optics that you guys are considering for Cottonwood Heights. I moved here 5 years ago, and when I was moving out of my place in Salt Lake City, in Sugar House, they were installing Google Fiber. And I just missed it by like a month or something. So, but that was 5 years ago, and they've had it since. And I know that we don't, obviously we haven't made a decision yet in Cottonwood Heights. And so I think it's getting kind of a little about time to maybe make a decision and provide some service for us in this community. Some thoughts about some of the providers you guys have been talking about. I heard CenturyLink mentioned, and my experience with CenturyLink from years ago is a big no. Not much to say about them. That would be a bad option. Utopia, I don't know much about Utopia. Heard a lot about it. It's been out there for years. They don't seem to be doing much in terms of getting an installed base, but they are a government entity, as we all know. And as I understand it, they provide the backbone, which then providers will then offer their services through the fiber network. To me, that's a big red flag, because you have these, what I consider unknown vendors who'd be providing service to the residents. And once we get some bad vendors, then we're kind of stuck with them. So I think Utopia there's too many unknowns, and I've heard some contractual issues that could be also red flags as far as Utopia goes. That leaves Google Fiber, and Google, we all know, big company. They're obviously offering their services below what would be considered market rates. As I understand it, they are reliable, fast, I think upwards of 2 gigabytes download speeds. And they're cheaper. They're not cheap, by many people's standards, but they are cheaper than Comcast. And they offer, maybe the biggest thing that people don't really realize is that once you get internet to your house, the problem is how that's distributed within your house. So if you have multiple rooms, multiple floors, internet is being distributed by Wi-Fi is a big problem. Google Fiber offers a Wi-Fi mesh units that provide that extension, if you will, which is a big plus. And that's about at least $300 of cost you would not incur, because mesh is free with Google Fiber. So again, from what I've heard, Google Fiber is by far your best option for this community. And I would hope that maybe just to solidify that opinion, maybe to talk to other cities that have adopted Google Fiber to find out, if they have positive feedback on that service. Thank you.
Thank you, Runar. I appreciate that. As I came into office, I made this a priority. So we've had Google and Utopia and CenturyLink. We're actually going to have Comcast present to us at our next work session. This is a priority. We actually spent about 20 to 30 minutes today in our work session talking about it's time to make a decision. We need to help our residents that don't have the fiber option, get a fiber option. And so there's not a perfect solution, unfortunately. You know, so anyway, I just want to thank you for bringing that up, and it's something that's at the top of our mind as a council to make the right decision. So thank you. Nancy Hardy.
Hi, Mayor. Hi, council members. I was wondering, I would like to understand the vacant commercial spaces in Cottonwood Heights and if it's increasing or decreasing, because some of them seem like they've been vacant for a long time. So I just wanted to find out, does Cottonwood Heights keep track of the square footage of vacant spaces in Cottonwood Heights and how long it's vacant? Does Cottonwood Heights take into consideration the amount of vacant commercial spaces before approving more to be built, so that to avoid building buildings to be vacant? Especially these days with more people working from home. I don't know if that's still the case or if it's going to trend a different way. And also, has Cottonwood Heights looked in to the possibility of a commercial vacancy tax or retail vacancy tax, just to for properties that are left vacant more than 6 months? I've heard about those in the past, and if that could be an incentive to get owners to lease their property and money for the city possibly. So.
Thank you, Nancy. Can I ask you a question? Do you have anything anywhere specific you're talking about?
I just see spaces on Highland and 2300 off and on Wasatch, and I don't know how. I see for lease signs. I don't know if it's how many offices or buildings are in there, but seems like the signs are generally at the same places, but you know, I don't keep track. I was just trying to understand about it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your comments. I'll tell you something interesting about Cottonwood Heights. We are the #2 city in the Wasatch Front with Class A office space. Other than Salt Lake City, we have some high-end, great options for, and there's a lot of big, good companies that are in Cottonwood Heights. As far as you're probably talking more retail, commercial spaces that have vacancies, and you'll see some of that down on 23, like you said, in the Hillside Plaza. And I think that has mostly to do with perhaps a change in ownership of property. So,
Okay.
but I think we do track, Mike, if I'm right, occupancy, and we could for sure if we do get some. So, okay,
Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy. Okay, do we have anybody online, Tim? Their hand raised. Okay, Mike, why don't you just come on up?
Starting on my comment card, but I'll submit it later. Thanks, Mayor, Council, for having this meeting tonight. I had a couple things. Runar kind of set me off a little bit because I've watched the discussion you had this evening over fiber, which was, I think, pretty good. There is no easy solution. I have a business that has just had an installation done in Mill Creek, and the contractor that Google used for them is probably worse than I've ever seen. It's just amazing what they've done as far as the installation is concerned. And the concern for me is that we also have roads that need a lot of work, and they do this micro trenching down the sides of the roads. And what does that do with degradation? What's their warranty? I understand you've talked about that. You've looked at it. You see, is there a way we can get back to the table and see if we can do anything to maybe get Google to pick up the pace a little bit on it? But it's just been less than desirable as far as installation I've seen around my business, which leads to the discussion you had about, having to forward a bond with with Utopia and do the things that they require you to do and how long that's going to last. I just feel like it's a pay me now or pay me later with Google. That's just my personal feelings.
Do you
One of-
mind giving an example? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh,
I'd
sure.
like to hear an
No.
example of what, happened in Mill Creek.
Well, if you travel any of the roads around State Street, 45th South, you see outside of State Street, which is a UDOT road. They just can kind of trench any way they want to. Anywhere they're tearing in the sidewalk or putting any kind of a junction box or any piece of part of that utility that they're installing is just done with I don't care attitude. I mean, it's like trip hazards. I'd love to take you on a walk. It's really pretty interesting. And to me, I think that there's got to be some level of expectation that needs to be fulfilled or else, but I don't know with the way they're operating this and listening to conversations that were had with Google before and understanding what I understand, and I'm just a citizen, so I don't get it all, that it's either my way or the highway with that. So and they're contracting this. This isn't trucks that say Google on the side of them. I mean, there's multiple contractors. Does that help? Thank you.
Thank you.
The other thing is, and I'll just keep it really short, is about money. I was kind of shocked when I woke up on the 4th and I read my news and see that our city settled a $4 million suit. And I appreciate Mayor and Council for the statement that you didn't agree with the trust. I, as a citizen, would like to know somehow if there's ever going to be an opportunity for us to see the detail of what $4 million does, because budgeting is a big deal. And whether a trust is paying it, which eventually comes out of our pockets and other municipalities, or we're paying it, that's a lot of money for something that we don't get any detail on. I don't know how much is shareable. I would think now that the press is released, that we ought to be able to get some kind of an idea of what were the details associated with that. And I think that'd be a great discussion to have in a work session that we could all have recorded and be a part of, record for us. Just my thoughts and my wishes. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate your comments and trying to decide whether or not to bite my tongue or not right now. Yeah, the attorney is telling me to bite my tongue. Okay. So we are, any other comments? Okay, with that, I will close the citizen comment period. Item 4.0 on our agenda this evening is a public comment period for 4.1, which is a Fort Union rezone, which is 3526 East Fort Union Boulevard. I'm going to have our Director of Community and Economic Development, Mike Johnson, come up and give us that.
Thank you, Mayor. For those that were listening at the last council meeting, we did go through this in the work session. But for the benefit of the public, I'll give a brief overview of the request here. This is a requested rezone of property located at 3526 East Fort Union Boulevard. You'll recall that not too long ago, this was in front of the council for a slightly different rezone request, and that was accompanied by a general plan land use map amendment request. Those were denied by the council. The applicant has since made a new application that's for a different zoning classification than the previous one, and that's what's in front of you tonight. This is a request to rezone the property from R18 to residential office with zoning conditions, which I'll explain in a minute. This is about just under an acre of land up on the south side of Fort Union Boulevard in the eastern portion of the corridor. I just went through that. This is just stating it was previously requested under a different designation and denied. The current land use designation from the general plan is residential office, which is why there's no general plan land use amendment in front of you tonight for consideration. The request for the current zone change does comply with the current general plan land use designation. Current zoning on the property is R18, single family residential. You can see there the proposal is residential office with conditions. What those conditions are is basically a voluntary condition imposed by the applicant himself that would prohibit any use allowed in residential office zoning except for residential. So the only uses that could be considered would be single family dwellings as a permitted use, meaning it could go straight to building permit. Or twin homes and home occupations as conditional uses, which would require planning commission approval. But all of the commercial and office type uses that are normally allowed in residential office would not be allowed under this proposal. This is a comparison of what the residential office setbacks would get that differ from the proposal that was previously in front of the council. You can see the setback measurements with the red cloud are what has changed. And I'll flip forward for a second because this shows the previous proposal. You can see where it's impacted most is on the west side of the property, that west side yard. Under the previous proposal was a minimum of 5 feet away from the property line. The new request under residential office would be 25 feet. So a much more substantial setback from that adjacent property to the west. And then to the south, the previous rear yard setback was 20 feet. Under residential office, it would be increased to 30. Building height allowed doesn't change, whether that's the current zoning today, which is single family residential, under the R2 proposal that was denied, or under residential office, that maximum height is 35 feet. I do want to just also put out there that the minimum setback in R18, so if they submitted a building permit today, they could propose a 35-foot home that's 8 feet away from that nearest western property, 20 feet away from the properties on the south. So just some comparison of the different setbacks.
Mike, can I
Sure.
ask you, given a zone change that would take effect fairly soon,
Mhm.
R1 is permitted, but it would need to conform to the RO setbacks. Is that correct? It wouldn't still apply to the same R1 setbacks that are today.
So you mean single family dwellings?
Right.
Yes. Yes to
okay.
both. Yeah, single family dwellings are allowed, but would need to meet these setbacks.
Okay,
Yes.
and I did misspeak. Thanks.
If a twin home were proposed, then that would have to go through public hearing at the planning commission level under a conditional use process. When staff looks at these requests, we use the general plan, the current adopted general plan as a tool. We look at it very analytically and seeing where the general plan complies with what's requested and the zoning conditions imposed restricted a lot of the uses that create, in our opinion, problematic impacts like traffic and lighting and kind of business type traffic. Staff recommended approval of this rezone to the planning commission. The planning commission took a public hearing and considered this on June 1st. And at that meeting, they voted unanimously to forward a recommendation of approval to you, the city council, with the findings there, mainly that it's compatible with the goals of the general plan. And now it's up to the city council to make the final consideration of this legislative item. There are 2 ordinances in front of you tonight. One is an ordinance for approval. One is an ordinance for denial. So the motion will be for approval or denial. And then you'd take that vote on either or, but not both. Any questions of staff?
I think we had a pretty healthy discussion.
I was just now we're going to hear from those 90, not all 90, but those that still have the opportunity to speak on this. And that to me is very important as well.
Thank you, Mike. So with that, I will open up the public comment period for item 4.1, which is the Fort Union rezone of 3526 East Fort Union Boulevard. First comment card I have for is Robbie McFarland.
Okay, my name is Robbie McFarland. Can you see me over that? I live at on Reindeer Drive, just around the corner from this proposed change. And I would, if it would remain single family homes, that would be awesome. It would maintain the character of our neighborhood. We live in a residential area. I don't want to see it as a twin home. All you have to do is drive on Chadbourne Drive, which is 1 street west of Smith's, off of Bengal Boulevard. It's a neighborhood of twin homes, and you can see the problems that twin homes have, the parking and everything. I would just like it to remain single family homes.
Thank you, Robbie. Appreciate that. Next up, we have Peggy Clark.
Hello again, I'm Peggy Clark. I live at 3479 Macintosh Lane. So I'm just down the street from this property. And I would just be very cautious when rezoning because our area is such a target since we're so close to the ski resorts and that to rezone for higher density housing and duplexes and triplexes and everything like that. So I would like to see this remain single family as well. Because I think once we start rezoning one property, then it's going to snowball and we're going to have other developers coming in and picking other properties that they want rezoned. So I would like to see it single family. And it seems like we've already had this meeting. I thought this was decided before. So, and Mary Ellen had already spoken about this before this discussion came up about the rentals and having them become ski rentals and being Airbnbs and things like that. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Peggy. So the last comment card I have is for Cynthia Blair.
Good evening. I want to thank the City Council for listening to us again. This feels like deja vu all over again, and I don't have too much new to add. Again, I really appreciate the builder offering to do the bigger setbacks. And I know I sent a letter to all the council members. I hope you received it about my concerns. For us, this might be the best offer that we have in terms of setbacks and our view, but we did go around and gather petitions or gather signatures for a petition from about 90 people in the area. And since that petition signing, which was to keep the property zoned single family residential, I've talked to several other people in the neighborhood. And with the exception of one couple in our neighborhood who are fine with the twin homes, everybody feels very, very strongly that they want to keep the neighborhood single family residential. Several people have moved into the area away from Sugar House because they felt like it was becoming overbuilt. And they just value that single family residential designation. I'm speaking for those 90 people. Not obviously they didn't all come to the meeting. They have other things going on. My next door neighbor, Jenna, asked me to tell you that I'm speaking for her. She's stuck in Colorado, unable to get home. So I really appreciate you considering our petition and our desire to stay residential single family. I also want to encourage whoever's nominated for the Planning Commission that it be someone who represents the people in our area and has the same values and the same desires. A lot of people really appreciate the new City Council and how much they are listening to us, but they've had issues in the past with feeling like they weren't heard. So thank you so much for your time. And again, I encourage you to vote against the rezoning. Thanks.
Thank you, Cynthia. I do not have any other comment cards.
There's one online.
One online.
Let me, Deborah Case.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. I had some technical difficulties and I was a little late. I wanted to make a citizen comment. Is that okay?
So this, if it's not in regards to the rezone, let us close the rezone comment public hearing and then I will give you a chance to speak after. Is that the case?
That is.
Okay, if you'll hold tight for a second. I am now going to close the public hearing for item 4.1 and briefly reopen the citizen comment period. Go ahead, Deborah.
All right, thank you so much. I wanted to voice my concern for the Planning Committee appointments today. Now, we know these appointments are made by the City Manager, Tim Tingey, and subject to the Council's approval. It has always concerns me when we don't have a direct consensus vote of the citizens of Cottonwood Heights. But with the Planning Commission, we rely on the wisdom of our appointed and elected officials to decide who to represent Cottonwood Heights for those 3-year terms. Now, Mike Shelton is currently being considered for a 3-year term on the Planning Committee. Shelton is a former council member in District 1, and although only one of you on the council and the current city manager have served together, You're all familiar with his history. I actually ran against him for the council in 2019, and this was prompted by the alarmingly high number of citizens, not only in District 1, but across the Cottonwood Heights, that were not in favor of his policies. Now, this is not a personal attack on Shelton or his character. I don't believe in his policies regarding building, growth, and planning for our city. And apparently a lot of other CH citizens feel the same way. Now, we trust in you to choose the right person to reflect our wants and needs for our city and its future. Shelton's more authoritarian and pro-building and growth attitudes just are not a good fit. We need someone in tune with our future, its needs, and what is best for the long run of the community. It is a community and environmental approach that will lead to long-term sustainability and economic growth. The short run of excessive building and increased congestion are hopefully in the past. We want a new future. Shelton resigned from the council race amid controversy. Many of the Cottonwood Heights citizens were upset with his overly builder-friendly attitude, his support of high density, large buildings, and increased traffic. Shelton supported the Welch Farm development despite his constituents' blatant opposition to the project and the precedent it created. People in his district did feel betrayed, and some blamed him for the excessive and unhealthy growth in our city. And I question, is this the man you want to put on the Planning Commission for 3 years? A person whose past planning and development ideas have been a source of frustration to the citizens of Heights, the man whom many blame and believe epitomized the very problems of growth and future development in our city. This is the man they blame for creating problems. And is this the one that you want to put in charge? Now, I really hope that you consider who you choose to recommend in your vote. It will be noted by the people who you choose to support. Your votes will be responsible for who is placed in that position and what subsequent decisions are made. We do elect our officials. We trust in them to make the right decisions for us, to represent us. So please choose wisely with your citizens and city's best interest in mind. They will remember how you vote, especially if the outcome is bad. And I really hope that you guys really consider what is best for the city. And I hope that we find a wonderful mix of people for our planning commission. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. So we are going to move back to, we're going to close the citizen comment period again and go back to our first legislative item, which relates to the Fort Union rezone. So the options that we have as a council right now are going to be to either hear a motion from one of you for consideration of ordinance 385A approving the rezone of 0.85 acre of real property located at 3526 East Fort Union Boulevard from R18 to RO-DC and amending the zoning map, or I will hear a motion to consideration of ordinance 385D denying the rezone of the same. The other option that we do have as a council, if I don't get a motion, would be to table it for more comments.
Mayor, may I make a comment prior to
Yes.
motion? I was on the council when we went through the general plan process a few years ago. I think that process that was initiated by citizens that were actually coming to this meeting and asking for a change in what originally had been put in, which was basically a mixed residential office, the entirety from 27th East all the way up or beyond. I think that process was thorough. I think it was well thought out. And typically when we're coming up with a rezone ordinance that complies with the general plan, I have traditionally and always been supportive of that because this one I am also would note that a couple of months ago when the initial request to change this to R2, which was a general plan amendment plus the rezone, I voted negatively the one way because one of the basis for turning down the general plan amendment was that we were in the process of doing a new general plan, and certainly would be something that would warrant discussion in that process. And so I have two kind of competing thoughts going on in my head. One is follow the general plan that we made that was done in good faith, and or to postpone this a little bit further with the current general plan. But as as I've said, typically in this situation, I would clearly move forward and approve. And I think it actually is a positive improvement from what was originally proposed. But we have obviously those who feel different.
Thank you, Councilmember Bracken.
Mayor, if I could speak. I appreciate what has been done with especially Council Bracken, that his institutional knowledge and what they've done previously. I think we need to weigh very heavily what our citizens feel is the harmony and the good of their neighborhood. And I appreciate the setbacks that have been made. That is an improvement, but I would make a motion to deny the rezone.
May I comment? I understand that in 2019, there was a general plan update based on certain persons who wanted to see us move away from mixed use along Fort Union Boulevard, let's just say east of 2700 East over to the Alpha Coffee to make it easy. And I think that was perhaps a good start. But I want to remind everyone that we're in the process of a general plan update. The vision that I have and that I share my constituents' point of view, and that is that east of 2700 East remains solidly single family. Let's really create a wonderful Main Street area from roughly 1700 East to 2700 East, and that is where it would be appropriate to have some higher density, mixed use, walkable. It would have a real flavor. I think it would give a cohesive and a great structure to our city. And so because we're in this general plan update process, my sense is that it's an inappropriate time to be doing rezones. And so I would be at this time in favor of tabling this decision.
Not a second.
Yeah, I'm
So-
in the,
Go
Can you
ahead,
hear me?
Councilmember Newell. What was that?
yeah, I said I'm in the position of denying as well for ordinance 385.
So you would be a second? to the
Yeah, I'll be a
motion?
second.
Okay, great. So at this point, we do have a motion for ordinance 385D denying the rezone, and from Councilmember Peterson, we have a second from Councilmember Newell. At that point, I will move forward to the vote. Begin with Councilmember Peterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bracken,
I will vote yes.
Councilmember Newell,
Yes.
Councilmember Burrell,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. Okay. So the next item on our agenda this evening is a consideration of resolution 2022-33, approving entry into the third amendment to an independent contractor agreement with Greg Curtis, DBA Consulting. We discussed this item earlier in our work session. Are there any other questions or comments from the council? Hearing none, I will now entertain a motion to approve resolution 2022-33. 33.
I move that we approve, Mayor.
I'll second that.
Motion to approve from Councilmember Peterson and a second from Councilmember Burrell. Any other questions or comments? Call for the vote. Councilmember Pete Bracken,
Yes.
Councilmember Newell,
Yes.
Councilmember Burrell,
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yes.
I will vote yes. Okay, next is a similar consideration of resolution 2022-34, approving entry into the third amendment to an independent contractor agreement with the Viva Consulting, Inc., DBA Capitol Hill Advisors. We also discussed this item earlier in our work session. Are there any other questions or comments from the council? Hearing none, I will now entertain a motion to approve resolution 2022-34.
Move to approve.
I move to approve resolution number 22-34.
I'm coming second too.
We have a motion to approve from Councilmember Newell. I'll take a second from Councilmember Bracken. Any other questions or comments? None, I will call for the vote. Councilmember Newell,
Yes.
Councilmember Burrell,
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bracken,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. Our next item of business is consideration of resolution 2022-35, approving appointments to the Planning Commission.
I can't hear you.
That's because nobody's talking.
Oh, okay. Good.
So your ears work.
Okay, good. I was afraid for a moment.
So can I comment?
Yes, go
Oh,
ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right.
City Manager Tim Tingy, I'm going to have him start off.
So we had a couple of items to clarify related to the resolution from the work session. The items to be clarified really relate to the districts that are eligible to have appointments at this time. So I'm proposing that there be a modification with the resolution to clarify that. Shane prepared information on that, and what the recommendation would be to have Mike Shelton fulfill the term for District 1 and be appointed as a District 1 member. And then outline also that Jonathan Ebler be an alternate as well. So that would be clarified in the resolution. And basically what that means, one of the things that's really important to note is that for regular members of the Planning Commission, we can only have 2 individuals per district. That includes an at-large as well as just a regular council district. So this would be with the appointment of Mike Shelton. This would allow for 1 person being in District 1. That would mean there would only be 6 individuals that are on the Planning Commission. We still have 1 more appointment that will need to occur. That is, if you approve tonight, Mike Shelton being on this as well as Sean Steinman. The individuals eligible would be from Districts 1 and 2, based on the code section that states that no more than 2 regular council members can be from 1 district, and then regular and alternate would be no more than 3. So basically what that means with what we have right now is a 1 and 2 district representative would need to be the next one. So I wanted to clarify that, and I'm recommending that change based on this, and Shane, you can correct me if I'm wrong. And then regarding the appointments, I am recommending that, and I'm proposing that we appoint Mike Shelton and Sean Steinman. Sean Steinman would represent District 4 As I mentioned, Mike Shelton would represent District 1. Based on the comments that were stated, I disagree with the comments about Mike Shelton. It talks about in the code the importance of having individuals that serve broad community interests, that understand broad community interests. I also like to add to that those that are thoughtful, understand both state and current law as well as they can. And I believe Mike Shelton meets all of those qualifications. He's someone that has served, he's someone that understands state law and local law regarding land use, and also understands broad community interests. And like I said, I disagree with the comments that were made. I think he will be a very valuable member of the Planning Commission, and that's why I'm proposing his name be considered as part of this appointment. Also, Sean Steinman, I've met with him. I met with both of them. I've met with Sean and feel that he has a great background. He's a business owner in the community. He's a resident. He does have some development interests. We don't have much at all development interests on the Planning Commission right now. And I feel like the things that I talked with him about, his interest in really promoting what is positive for the community, long-term and short-term, and having a balanced approach, I think all of those things are important elements for someone that can be successful in the Planning Commission. So I'm recommending approving these appointments of Mike Shelton, Sean Steinman, with the modification to the resolution as I just outlined.
Thank you, Tim.
And
appreciate
he's
that.
in the
No, that- yeah,
he's in the audience as well, Mike Shelton. And sometimes we have had individuals that are in the audience. If you are interested in hearing from them, we can.
I did want to invite you up, Mike, if you wanted to come up. I think that would be appropriate in this instance.
I had not anticipated that I would come up, but I appreciate the opportunity. I think the work that the Planning Commission does is so very important to our community, and have spent a lot of time as I was involved with the city on land use issues. They mean a lot to me, as they do to our community. I think the Planning Commission is has an important role to represent the community, as was said, by a broad base and a variety of perspectives. In the end, as we saw tonight, the decisions that have the greatest impact are also made by a committee that represents the community, the City Council. And I appreciate your role in doing that, and I think, again, vital. So here we have two community-based councils, representatives, and hopefully they represent the community well. And I think that I have shown a willingness to represent the community in my work. So I appreciate Deborah's point of view. I think we all have one, and she does as well. And certainly when it was time for the community in District 1 to decide which of our points of view it appreciated most, it made a decision. So whether I was always right or not is not really the question, but I hope what I learned from that is that I represented the community well, and the larger part of the community saw it that way at that time. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Very well stated. I appreciate you coming up without notice. So other questions from the comments from the council?
I do have a comment. Having spent 8 years working directly with Mike, Mr. Shelton, we didn't always agree. But I always found him to be willing to listen to each side of a discussion, weigh it, come up with where he felt was best. And even when that disagreed, I think we were able to amicably disagree. I don't hold all of his views, but I don't with anybody else in this room either. I don't think that's an issue. I think the vast majority of his decisions were correct. And I was a little surprised when his name come up, but at the same time, I think it was probably good for our planning commission because if there's someone who does understand the different roles. It's usually done the other way around though. It's usually you see a planning commission, then you move on to the council, but Mike, you do you.
So Scott, there's no credibility to the rumors that you egged his house when he disagreed with you that time.
I thought that was you.
Oh, no. No, but I think Mike would be, I think he'd be good on the planning commission.
Councilmember Burrell.
Thank you. Well, I respect and thank Mike Shelton for his service. 8 years doing this job is a Herculean thing. So I hope that you will not take my comments and perceptions in any way as anything disrespectful. But each of us have facts in front of us, so this has nothing to do with personal observations. I think it's factual that there was over 4,100 residents of Cottonwood Heights that I believe it was in either 2017, I believe it was in 2017, signed a referendum because they were extremely displeased with the densification of an apartment complex that was being considered by our city. I believe it was Ivory Homes, and they wanted a further variances to which the residents were extremely opposed to the point that they organized and collected over 4,100 signatures. This was clear that residents of Cottonwood Heights were extremely displeased. That fell within District 1. That was largely under the oversight of Mr. Shelton. In my district, the Canyon Center has been a very flawed project that has brought a lot of consternation to surrounding residents that not only live within the Canyon Center complex, but live surrounding it. And it's created a lot of extra work for this council and for the residents who are complaining about the design of it. And that also fell under Mr. Shelton's guidance. So I cannot in good conscience feel that bringing Mr. Shelton onto the Planning Commission would be a positive thing for our community. I'm also have voiced my to staff over recent months what I believe is a ineffective, I believe our website is ineffective at communicating with our residents the opportunities that they have for committee, commission, and appointments. And I think this needs to change. I think there's a lot of active residents who have devoted tirelessly many, many hours and have not realized really how they could step forward and apply to work within the Planning Commission. And so my action tonight is to recommend to my fellow council that we delay this vote, that we go to our homepage of our website and put a large call out box that lets our residents know that the deadline for applying for these various Planning Commission openings is open, and that our city manager can consider other applicants who more represent the direction that has been pointed out in our surveys, which is a direction toward connectivity, walkability, traffic calming, and less development. So this is a 3-year term each of these people will take. Also, the idea of tonight suddenly elevating the alternate, Mr. Jonathan Ebler, to the at-large position on the Planning Commission, I think is inappropriate. I don't think there's been enough time for the council to consider these applicants. This was only put in front of me over a holiday weekend recently. I'm not prepared to make this vote. And so I would ask my council to entertain a motion to delay this and to take the action of having our staff do some kind of public service announcement and something on our home webpage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Burrell.
Just clarification, with what I'm proposing on amending, it would not move Jonathan Ebler up to a regular commission member, he would remain as an alternate. So just to clarify.
When did he start? Do you have that?
I believe 2021 is when he started.
Well, thank you. I've mentioned before, differences of opinion are good. It engages debate, and I'm grateful we live in a country and in a state and a city that allows us to express our opinions. And I think there isn't anything more important than that. Councilmember Newell, did you have something to add?
No, I have no comment.
Okay. So at this point, I would entertain a motion to approve resolution 2022-35.
And on the table to postpone it, are you going to remove that?
Do I have a second for the motion to postpone this? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve resolution 2022-35.
I move that we approve resolution 2022-35.
I second that.
We have a motion to approve resolution 2022-35, approving appointments to the planning commission.
Mayor,
Yes.
may I just clarify, does that include the modifications
Yes,
that I
with,
proposed?
sorry, with the modifications that Tim outlined.
And a second from Councilmember Peterson. I will now call for the vote. Councilmember Burrell,
No.
Councilmember Peterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bracken,
Yes.
Councilmember Newell,
Yes.
I will vote yes. The next item on our agenda is consideration of resolution 2022-36, approving entry into the First Amendment to a consulting agreement with GeoStrata Engineering and Geosciences LLC. We also discussed this item earlier in our work session. Are there any other questions or comments on this item from the council? Hearing none, I will now entertain a motion to approve resolution 2022-36.
Appreciate what does.
I'll make the motion to approve resolution number 2022-36.
And I'm fine to come in second.
Thank you, Councilmember Newell. We have a motion to approve from Councilmember Newell and a second from Councilmember Bracken. Any other questions? I will now call for the vote. Councilmember Peterson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bracken,
Yes.
Councilmember Newell,
Yes.
Councilmember Burrell,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. Okay, our last legislative item tonight is a consideration of resolution 2022-37, initiating review of compensation for the city's elected and appointed officers and providing a public hearing concerning any proposed modifications to such compensation. Our city manager, Tim Tingy, you want to address that real quick?
Yeah, this is something we've talked about in the budget process. We've also looked at the market related to compensation of elected officers and also statutory officers. So what this would do is expresses the intent to consider amending the compensation of the elected and statutory officers, and then orders that a public hearing would occur, and that would be set for July 19th. And so that is the resolution that would need to occur before anything. It would also include a public hearing on the 19th as well.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments from the council?
Just so that we're, I would assume that with that public hearing, that the information was put to the website, if someone was curious to what exactly was being considered.
Correct.
And I mentioned this before, but not in a meeting here. It's been 9 years since we've updated this resolution. I think that's certainly time to bring up to current, just for the ease of reading and transparency to the public sake. So I look forward to the discussion and the public hearing.
Thank you, Councilmember Bracken. Any other comments or questions? If not, I will now entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2022-37, initiating review of compensation for the city's elected and appointed officers and providing for a public hearing concerning any proposed such compensation.
I'd move that we approve resolution 22-37.
I'll second.
We have a motion to approve from Councilmember Bracken and a second from Councilmember Newell. I'll now call for the vote. Councilmember Bracken,
Yes.
Councilmember Newell,
Yes.
Councilmember Burrell,
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson,
Yes.
and I will vote. Yes. Okay, the last item for this evening is approval of the consent calendar, which is the meetings for both, minutes for the meetings for both June 21st and closed session on June 22nd. Could I have a motion to approve these minutes?
I move to approve the minutes.
I second that.
Motion to approve from Councilmember Newell and a second from Councilmember Burrell. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So that concludes the items on our agenda tonight. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn. Mayor.
I'll second that.
We're going to stay here for a while. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any